In part 2 of this one-part series, we imagined what Christian excusage extraordinaire William Lane Craig would sound like if he were an honest person. Someone who was forthright and candid in terms of the alleged facts he presents when arguing for the resurrection of Jesus. In this video, we're going to look at Bill's childish explanation for those alleged facts and the historical probability for the events recorded in the Gospels. But first, let's start off by looking at some of the problems which diminish the probability of the Gospel stories being accurate historical accounts of what actually happened 2,000 years ago. These are the facts Bill would present to his audience were he an honest person. Were the Gospels written contemporaneously, during the lifetime of the person written about? No. They were written 35 to 65 years after the fact. Are the Gospels first-person eyewitness accounts? The Gospels themselves don't even make such a claim. Do we know where the Gospel writers got their information, or if any of the information came from first-hand sources? No, we don't. Nor do we know anything about the Gospel writers themselves. Do the Gospels make inaccurate historical claims? Yes. Luke claims Jesus was born in Bethlehem because a Roman census forced Joseph and Mary to return to Joseph's ancestral homeland. This is not how the Romans conducted a census. Then, Matthew claims Herod ordered the slaughter of all children in and around Bethlehem under the age of 2, shortly after the birth of Jesus. There is no historical evidence for this event either. Do the Gospels contain fantastical stories which contradict our background knowledge of the way the world works? Yes. Aside from Jesus raising the dead, casting demons into pigs, and walking on water, events which in any other story would be rejected by Lobar Bill, the author of Matthew's Gospel has people rising from their graves upon Jesus' death and strolling throughout the holy city. All of this adds to the improbability of the Gospel stories being accurate historical accounts of what happened 2,000 years ago. In particular, the fantastical claims of miracles. Nevertheless, Lobar Bill has a solution, an explanation of how all these improbabilities can be overcome. Bill.
Notice that Dr. Ehrman just assumes that the probability of the resurrection on our background knowledge is very low. But here I think he's confused. What, after all, is the resurrection hypothesis? It is the hypothesis that Jesus rose supernaturally from the dead. It is not the hypothesis that Jesus rose naturally from the dead. That Jesus rose naturally from the dead is fantastically improbable.
Did you get that? Bill says that Dr. Ehrman just assumes that the probability of the resurrection is very low given our background knowledge of the world. That of the 100 billion or so humans who've lived here on Earth, not a single one of whom has died and lived to tell the tale. That's our background information, and it doesn't need to be assumed. That's the fact, unless you can prove otherwise, and no one can. But then Bill says,
I think he's confused. What, after all, is the resurrection hypothesis? It is the hypothesis that Jesus rose supernaturally from the dead.
Well, there's your confusion, and there's your assumption. The natural world has all kinds of evidence supporting its existence. We don't have to assume it exists because you and I are living in it right this very second. That's our background knowledge of life in the universe, or at least here on planet Earth. And here on planet Earth, death is a permanent state of being, or lack thereof. What's our background knowledge of the supernatural realm and the supernatural beings who inhabit that realm? Fairies, elves, goblins, angels and demons, ghosts and gods. Well, let's take a deeper look at that. That's right. We have absolutely no background knowledge of any supernatural realm or supernatural beings. Zero, nada, zilch. For hundreds of years now, we've been observing our world and running experiments seeking to discover the causes of various phenomena. And in all of that time, we have yet to discover a single supernatural cause for anything. If you're going to open the door to the supernatural and include that in your probability calculus, then nothing is improbable. With God, all things are possible. The earth could be very young, and God or Satan could have simply made it appear otherwise. The Native Americans could be Hebrews, and God could be hiding that fact from the world to test our faith. Bill's inclusion of the supernatural in his probability calculus means that Jesus could have been raised from the dead, but by Satan, in order to mislead humanity into centuries of sectarian conflict, violence, and division. Literally nothing can be ruled out. The Greek gods, the Hindu gods, the apotheosis of Julius Caesar, all of it just as probable as any other supernatural event or claim. But an explanation that explains everything explains nothing. What we're talking about here in the most vernacular of terms is magic. Not the kind done by my dear friend Jamie Ian Swiss or Penn and Teller, but the kind of magic done in fairy tales. The kind of magic you find in Harry Potter novels. The kind of magic for which we have not 1 ounce of background knowledge beyond the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Bill and his ilk, if they were honest, would simply tell us that they believe in this kind of magic, the fantastical Pegasus, unicorn, ghosts and goblins, fairy dust kind of magic for which we have absolutely no background evidence or knowledge whatsoever. Then it would be clear to everyone that none of these people should be taken seriously. Once again, I'm me. Thanks for watching.